Hey y'all, it's Jen. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm an artist, a mom, and I never went to art school. I love making videos about mixed media, collage, junk journaling, DIYs using inexpensive materials, and easy art. So if that's your kind of thing, please consider sticking around, subscribing, and liking this video. You won't believe what I got from Dollar Tree, this beautiful boho-inspired junk journal. And how did I get it? Well, I made it. Stay tuned to see the process. So, are you guys ready? Here we go. I first started with some yarn from Dollar Tree and a bath mat. This bath mat looks kind of dingy, but I went after it for its texture. Boho style is nature inspired, lots of woven pieces. So I started with this $1.25 bath mat. So what I needed to do was brighten it up a little bit because to me it looked really dingy. So I mixed up some, I think it's called marshmallow apple barrel paint with some white regular paint and put a little bit of water in it to make it kind of runny. This is a chalk paint brush and it worked really well, but it's just slurped up all the paint. So I changed to using this really stiff brush and just spent a little bit of time just repainting the bath mat. Now I'm opening up one of my yarn packages from Dollar Tree, and I'm about to do this really cool woven kind of faux woven knot process, and I learned this from Miguelito DIY. I hope I didn't butcher that, but I will link his channel down below. He is amazing at turning Dollar Tree items into these beautiful decor pieces. So he did a slightly different process than I'm doing. He used jute twine and then he glued all of the twine and then cut it into the shape of a leaf to make it very stiff. And he used Dollar Tree mop like threads, which are really thick. So it's really easy to do that. What I did is I bundled some of the Dollar Tree yarn and I did his process that way. So you're going to get 2 bunches of crocheted material yarn. You're going to get 2 bunches and then you're going to curve it into like a U shape on one side underneath that string. And then you're going to do the same on the opposite. And you're going to take all the tails and bring them through the loops, each other's loops. I hope this makes sense. I'm not very good at explaining instructions, but if you can, I do this several times. And yeah, so you just loop your yarn around something like a notebook, whatever size you want. I suggest making these relatively long so that you have enough slack to work with. So you can see the knot forming there, and it looks like it's kind of loosey-goosey, but if you pull it down, it will end up being tightened. So I hope you can kind of see what I'm doing. You can see the process really well in Miguelito DIY's video, so I would suggest you check that out to see the knotting process here. So I filled this up to my desired length, and now I'm trimming it with the scissors. I really thought that it looked a little bit like the Lorax's mustache. So I was getting that vibe, so I did what I could to trim it up, but you'll see I kind of struggle with the design. So I'm seeing where I want my placement for the journal. And then I'm going to grab a hot glue gun and I'm going to glue that middle part to my journal. And here I just decided to trim it up even more. It kind of gets to be the size of a traveler's, like a regular standard traveler's notebook, but it's a little tall. I think it's about 9 inches tall. So here I am gluing the middle part with some Gorilla Hot Glue and just pressing that down. I still wasn't really happy with the look of it. It kind of looked like a hairy centipede to me. So I really wasn't digging it. So you'll see me try to problem solve. And I just want to say something real quick about arts and crafts. you know, I get so many compliments. You're so creative. You're so creative. Well, you are too. What this is, creativity, is having a vision of something that you want to do and trying to do it, but it doesn't work out. So when it doesn't work out, you're stuck with problem solving. Okay, what can I do to this to make it look good? And you keep changing, you know, what you're doing. And then you decide, okay, now that looks good to my eye. So that's really what happened with this process. So I want you to believe I didn't set out to create this exact result. So I got a piece of recycled cereal box and I glued it onto the back of my rug with Mod Podge. Now I'm just pressing it down to make sure that the glue adheres. And now I'm trimming up the edges of my cover. Because there's some excess cereal box. So I'm trimming those sides up, making it really clean. I still think it looks like a hairy centipede, and you'll see how I handle it. So I really suggest trimming this up. You're going to get some nice sharp edges. This frays a little bit, but once you really trim it down and you've glued it to that cereal box, it's eventually going to stop fraying. And these I found at Dollar Tree. They have these beautiful beads, and I love the colors of them, and I tried to tie them on to the journal cover. I didn't like how that looked because it was dangling down and it still looked like a hairy centipede. And unfortunately, I didn't record what I did, but I ended up trimming the yarn up even more, shorter. And those beads, I just took 2 strings of yarn and I put 1 string into the bead and then used the other string to tie a knot. So I tied around those beads and pushed them to the very middle of like the woven seam, I guess you could say. So that's looked good to my eye, and that's the design that I ended up with. And I just made sure to trim it. I think that makes it look more cleaner and more stylish. So Dollar Tree has this craft paper roll, and I decided to try to line the inside of my junk journal with this craft paper because I want to paint on it and create my own design. I will say that this paper is relatively thin, so be careful when you are gluing this to the inside of your journal cover. So here I just used some inexpensive paint from Walmart, the Apple Barrel brand, and I think it's in toasted marshmallow again. And this paint is about 50 cents a bottle. So I'm just making an inside design on my cover because I want it to be so cute and interesting. And it's just really fascinating that you really can make your own designs and your own decorative paper. So that's really fun. I'm just getting some papers prepared for my journal, and as an extra bonus, I'm going to be testing out the watercolors, the highlighters, and the Sharpies from Dollar Tree, okay, so that you can see for yourself how it works out. This palette, it's kind of hard to get it started to get the pigment on your paper. You have to use a lot of water and a lot of pressure when you're painting, and it's very chalky. So I think this is a great watercolor for kids to use, and if you're strapped for cash, it definitely does provide some pigmentation for you and some marks. When it's done drying, it's going to have a really chalky surface, so make sure that you wipe it off with a rag or an old towel. Yeah, so, you know, when you're making like very specific marks and doing like these blending techniques, I wouldn't say that the texture really is that visible when it dries because you do have to kind of dust it off. It's really chalky, but at least you can dye the paper, you can add some color to it, and you'll see when I put the book together how it ends up looking. So you'll definitely be able to then add more papers on top of it, write over it with a felt tip marker, add collage, just whatever your heart desires. You'll be able to work with this. So here I'm just still testing it out, trying to blend, trying to make some interesting colors, finding the colors that I like, and making some patterned type papers. and yeah, just experimenting. So overall it works pretty well. I just don't like how chalky it is in the end and how dusty it gets, but so you'll see how it turns out. So here I got these adorable highlighters. They are just so pretty and so cute. And here I am, I'm testing them, and they work fine. I would say that the peach and the pink are my favorite highlighters because you can really see them. They're really vivid. Again, like previous videos, I use old vintage books for inspiration on mark making and making patterns. So I'm kind of repeating the little patterns that are on the balloons on this book. My previous video on how to make a house-shaped junk journal from Dollar Tree stuff, that shows you how I gain my inspiration for making marks and pattern papers. So that was the pink highlighter. I really enjoyed it. And now I'm going to test the green one. And the green one I wasn't as happy with as the pink. I still think it's a really cute color. However, you can't really mark over something several times with it. Try to only do one, I guess, stroke or one coat, because it does start to rip the paper that you're drawing on. So definitely try not to overlap your highlighter, your green highlighter. So I came up with this from that little lion, and as you can see, it does not look like the lion at all, but I just thought it was a cool design, and so I made it my own, and it kind of looks like a squiggly sun. And then I saw the guy's mustache and thought, oh, I will make that into a mark. And as you can see, if you look at it by itself, it doesn't look exactly like a dude's mustache, but I'm trying to tell you that inspiration is everywhere. There's been people that say, oh, I never know what marks to use, you know, and it's like, well, yeah, because you're not looking, okay? You got to look at other things. You can't look at a blank paper and come up with a mark. You got to go out and look at shapes and different lines and things. You can go outside, you can look in old books. You can look in things at your house, the grain of wood, anything. So I tried the peachy coral highlighter and absolutely loved it. And I don't know if you can see this yellow, but the yellow works just fine, like a regular yellow highlighter. I saw the windmill and decided to mimic that design and kind of make a geometric design on this page. Then I thought, oh, it needs more, so I just kind of made more lines. You can add, it's going to look so interesting once you put pictures in it, memory keeping, or you add further art or more collage. These are just very simple backgrounds. This, I got inspiration from the quilt in this book and started off with some squares and then copied those little teardrops. It still looks a lot different from her quilt. And then I improvised some little flowers with the green highlighter in the squares. Now I'm taking a new book to look for more inspiration. And I'm going to go with just some little simple marks on a basket to indicate the woven parts of the basket, and the yellow works fine. So I would recommend these highlighters, definitely. They're very cute. So now I'm going on to Dollar Tree's version of Sharpie markers. They are very inky. They do feather out a little bit, but I actually liked that effect. I actually enjoyed it. This pink is amazing. I love it. This little magenta Sharpie is awesome. If you price compare to the Sharpies at Walmart, I think they run about $4 for a variety of these colors. So this is overall a pretty good pack. I don't know how long they're going to last, and the actual markers themselves seem very lightweight, okay, and kind of flimsy. But hey, if you only have $1.25 for art, it is what it is. It works. I enjoy the pigment in them, and we'll see how long they last. So decided to add some Sharpie to this highlighter. And I used marker paper for this page, and the Sharpie actually, you can see the Sharpie circles on the other side of this marker paper. And I just love that. As you'll see in the end, when I put the pages together, it acts as if it's like a whole new pattern page on the other side. So here's another piece, and I dusted it off gently, and I'm using the blue Sharpie. Not my favorite blue, but it works. And just layering up the watercolor pages. And like I said, this is my own scrapbook paper. I made it myself, and I didn't have to pay $2 for a page. Now I decided to line the edge of my journal with some tassels, so I grabbed that craft knife packaging because that is the size of tassel I wanted, and I wrapped it around about 15 times, cut a string, looped it around in the circle, and tied it at the top to connect everything together. Now I'm cutting another string and coming down a little ways, about 1/4 inch, and tying another string and knot around that so that there's like a puff at the top. And then I'm trimming the bottom of the tassel. I found that this was the easiest way for me to do it. There's other techniques where you make a hoop, and then when you're done wrapping, people wrap the string around, and it looks really awesome, but I could not figure out that strategy. It was very difficult. So I just did it the easiest way, and it looked fine. And I made one knot at the top so I would have a place for the hot glue to grab onto. Only knot it once so you can keep this flat as possible. And I'm just using my scissors just to mash down the glue and the yarn so everything's flat as possible. Okay, so now I'm grabbing my inside cover paper, and I'm trimming the angle, so the left and the bottom angle of it, so that when I glue, I can meet it perfectly in at least one corner, and I can trim the rest. I didn't want to trim like the front edge because of the tassels. I don't want to cut them off with my craft knife. So that's why I made sure that that edge definitely matches up perfectly. And now I'm just gluing with Fabri-Tac a little bit of the paper at a time. And this glue will soak through a little bit through this craft paper. So make sure that you kind of use a thinner layer than I did. I just globbed it on because I really wanted it to stick. If you do use a lot of glue, make sure that you let your journal cover fully dry before folding it, because it will kind of glue this like to each other. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense. So now I'm preparing my papers, I'm folding them up, and like I said, I'm dusting them off. Now I grab a rag and I'm dusting them, but it's still a light color pink. The marks are still there. I'm trimming down all my pages so that they'll fit inside of my journal. And sometimes I rip them, sometimes I use a ruler to rip them. And now I'm deciding what order I want everything in, all the pages in. And you can see they're pretty cute. They're gonna look really awesome once, you know, you start adding art to it and your pictures and your writing to it. It's just gonna look totally cute. So I folded my papers, and I made some of them facing frontwards and some facing backwards, just to have a variety, and so that I can have full blank spreads that I could do my own art with. I love matching up papers like that. That came out really cute. I almost put that little paper in the middle, but I decided that I really want the middle of my signature to be a large page of paper, just so that I have space to create my holes for sewing in my signature for my pamphlet stitch. Here I'm just matching up all the papers and making sure that they're all even and lined up together. So definitely arrange them however you want, but I kind of meet mine in the middle. And just matching up the edges, and I'm using clips. I'm going to actually clip this signature to the cover because I'm going to poke holes through everything at the same time. And usually I use wax linen thread, but I'm showing you guys that you can use anything, and I grabbed the jute twine from Dollar Tree. It's in the tool section, and it's a lot cheaper, better deal than in the craft section. And I gave myself a ton of thread because I'm going to also use the thread as a closure. So I'm starting my pamphlet stitch from the outside of the book instead of the inside of the book. So I'm going to poke 3 holes for the pamphlet stitch, one in the middle and one from maybe 1/2 inch from the top of the journal and 1/2 inch from the bottom of the journal. And I'm going to sew through the top there. Okay, pulling that taut. I'm making my 3rd hole at the bottom, and that's the next area, the next hole that the thread is going to go into. Okay, now you have a really huge needle. I'm using like a doll needle, I think, so I can get it through there. Okay, so you can see I still have a lot of twine, and now I'm coming out of my hole there, and I'm ready to tighten everything and tie it up, secure it. So I put each tail on either side of my signature, and I'm going to knot it. And because the thread is so long, I just bunched up one tail and popped that through to make a knot. Okay, so I have these long 2 pieces of string, and that's going to wrap around my journal to act as a closure. And I made it really big because you are going to stuff this. You're going to want to stuff this journal. I made a knot at the bottom to connect both of the pieces of jute twine, and then I'm just wrapping it to create a closure. So that is it, guys. I am just surprised with myself that I was able to create this. But let me tell you, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of problem solving, a lot of readjusting to get things looking good at to my eye, because I don't really work with tassels or weaving stuff or making knots. So I was really proud of myself, and I really appreciate the video by Miguelito DIY. And again, I'm going to link his video so you can see the process a little better of making those knots that are on the cover. And this is the flip through. Doesn't this look exciting? I mean, doesn't it cause you to want to journal in it? I think it's really cute. Came out cute. So you guys, let me know what you think about this. I'm proud of this. I think this is the best thing I've made so far. And I can't believe it's from a bath mat, some yarn, and some wooden beads from Dollar Tree. So again, as always, thank you so much for being such a support and leaving such sweet comments. And I really hope that you have enjoyed this and it makes you want to subscribe to keep track with all the things I make. Remember that you are creative and you are loved. Have a good one.